Mary Claire Kendall, welcome to Power and Witness. And you've been doing some work with the network recently about Hollywood. You've written a book called Oasis, Conversion Stories of Hollywood Legends. You've been part of the James Day series on Hollywood and conversions and things. James works for the network here. But I just want to ask you about some of these stories. On the cover of your book, you got some of the biggest names and faces of Golden Age Hollywood, and you recount these stories. Tell us one of your favorite ones.
Well, as I was telling Doug Keck, I don't really have a favorite one. My favorite is when I'm working on that particular star, but there are some real galvanizing stories that are particularly galvanizing, riveting, I guess would be the right word. Betty Hutton, actually, who I've just written about in Alatea, today's May 31st, and so they'll be publishing this today or tomorrow, I suppose. Betty Hutton. Betty Hutton is just the kind of the prototypical story because she was just rocketed to the top. She had great success, and then she flamed out because of her torments, as A.C. Lyles, who was her good friend, a big Paramount producer friend of mine, told me. And then she found healing and recovery through the Catholic faith. She it was through a priest. I'm fast forwarding this. I probably should give more background. The background is that she was the biggest thing in Hollywood. She came from nothing. She lost her father when she was 2. He disappeared. He left the family. And
what
she
were
was
some of her?
always looking for a father. She was from. Go ahead.
Well, some of her big films.
Annie, Get Your Gun.
Okay.
That was probably the biggest film she was associated with. That was the 1950s, based on the big Broadway show. The Greatest Show on Earth, Cecil B. DeMille. And that's when I don't want to kind of get this out of order.
A Star is Born.
That was Judy Garland, but that's when she injured her shoulder.
Okay.
And that's when she started taking the pain pills, which then that kind of led to more, and she became very addicted. But because of her background, the fatherless childhood, the hard scrabble, her mother was alcoholic, but she had this great talent. She had this great ability to perform, and was performing from the time she was 3 in her mother's speakeasy there in Lansing, Michigan, and then just kind of climbed up out of that. She just had this desire to be a success, to be a star. She actually told Robert Osborne, she was famous. This is where I came upon her. Robert Osborne, who's the host of TCM back in 2000. They looked her up and brought her down to Atlanta, interviewed her, and she said she went to go see her mother, took her to go see a Charlie Chaplin film. It probably would have been The Gold Rush in 1925. She was born in 21. And she said, I'm going to become a star, and my mother, that'll help my mother, to become, better, to heal. So she had this great desire, and she prayed a lot. She was a very prayerful soul. When she went to Hollywood, she told, and she finally got there through Buddy DeSilva. When she got to New York, she was Broadway, had some Broadway. Performances, shows, famously Panama Hattie with Ethel Merman, and then Buddy DeSilva was producing, and Ethel Merman kind of cut her number, and Buddy said, hold on, you stay on, I'm going to be the head of production at Paramount, I'll bring you out there. He brought her out there in 41, and she just, A.C. Lyles, who's a friend, he was a longtime producer at Paramount. He was tasked with showing around the studio that fine whatever day, and they said, and then they immediately called up and said, we need somebody to perform at Shriners. Will you? Do you know someone? Oh, it doesn't have to be a known person. We just need to kind of wake them up. Be 60 performers all day. Oh, Betty. So she performed, and the lady said, I'm glad you're doing this. I know you're not known. And she says, well, they might not know me now, but they'll know me afterwards. And she just brought down the house. And then immediately they cast her in the Fleet's Inn. and she just, Arthur Murray taught me dancing in a hurry, and she just rocketed, just rocketed. But she also she had manic depression, so that was another thing. A lot of them do, and so what she told Mike Douglas, and when I was going to wrap her, was that when she got to Hollywood, the prayer it kind of left her.
Yeah.
And so then
in the beginning she prayed, and then it kind of
left her.
her.
With the money and all the fame, and she just always beautifully turned out. She was, and she got married. I personally think if she had that depression with her pregnancy, she probably had postpartum. So, but then she was also, her husband wanted her to stay home, and she was this career. She had this fabulous career. So Annie Get Your Gun, and then her second husband, Curran, he wanted, and he was a direct choreographer. She was using her, and so she wanted him to direct her next Paramount film, and Paramount said no, and she tore up her contract, and that was it. A.C. Law said that was the biggest mistake, but I'm going to get to the Catholic part. So then she had already made Greatest Show on Earth in 52, started taking the pain pills, and then she tore up her contract. And just shortening this, her career was done. And then she just...
Like she was in her 20s and the career was over?
29, Annie Get Your Gun. She was born in 21. So 2031 was over because she tore up her contract. Biggest mistake she made as far as, stability, because that was her security blanket, A.C. Lyle said. So 52 to 72, really rough road. She gradually, she actually became, she was like almost homeless. I mean, she hotels. This minister is very, good-hearted, very helpful, very, very nurturing to Betty. Brought her in their Hollywood Hills home. I think that's where Mike Douglas actually interviewed her back in 72 when she relayed this story about it going out of her and her experience when it was really rough with her mother and the speakeasy, and sometimes it would get really rough, and she'd run across the street to the nuns and hide behind their skirts, and so that's so she got out, but they couldn't, she wasn't Catholic, so. But anywho, the priest.
I'm sorry,
priest.
A speakeasy, is that like a bar? Or
a bar.
That's a bar. Okay.
So then she leaves and she goes to the East Coast. Anything goes. She's performing on this theater dinner circuit. She's on her third marriage, loses her child, but she's addicted because the injury, Greatest Show. She became terrible. I mean, she went into she was performing in Vegas, but popping pills to keep the energy. So she had a full blown addiction. So she goes out and then she's the third child loses custody, collapses on stage, and then this gets to the priest. They take her to the rehab. I think it was outside of Boston. I think it's called Grey Rock. Anywho, she's there plotting her next move and sees this priest, Father Peter McGuire, checking in his intoxicated cook. And she says, he was so saintly, so calm. She's going bananas. And he's going to save my life. Well, he did. The next thing, she made her way to the rectory and cooked. And Father Peter McGuire, taught her, tutored her so she could finish her high school education in Portsmouth, Rhode Island. And then the word got out. And then Betty, I think she had a nervous breakdown because it was just, it messed with her delicate recovery. But she got back up on her feet, healed, went to Salve Regina, got her, degree, was teaching, and then teaching drama, theater, and she even at Emerson in Boston. I mean, and this is an incredible story for a woman who was down to 85 pounds. Just this close to following her good friend Judy Garland into the grave. And she tried to kill herself, so God was with her, and she became a Catholic. in this whole thing, became a Catholic and never was, she'd walk down the aisle after receiving communion, said, Christ is my heart. She never went anywhere without her rosary because she says, I'm scared. I'm always scared. That's what Al Jolson said you have to be. You know, if you don't have a heart, you can't give it.
Yeah.
That's what that's what you need to give to your audience. And
Jolson
beautiful.
connected that to fear, giving your heart, or
that because Betty said, because she said, oh, Mr. Jolson, she told the story like it was in the 30s, but mid-30s, but it was when she was on Broadway because he was finishing out Broadway then. I had, so I've written actually a book about Betty, so I've plotted out everything really just so. So she saw him and she looked him up. I think it was when she was probably on. It was it was the first show. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'm always scared. He said, that's okay. Betty, I throw up before every show. You got to be that way. It shows you have a heart. If you don't have a heart, you can't give it to him.
Yeah.
If you don't have a heart, you can't give. So, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I always heard that about Mel Brooks, too. I think in his early days, he was doing stand-up, and he'd be throwing up between the cars in the parking lot. He was so nervous.
Yeah.
But he was just, like, driven to do this,
yeah.
and he persevered through it. But even... You hear that other great singers and stuff for the same thing.
Well, A.C. Lyle said about Betty, she had great torments and great talent, and they all showed up on the screen. It's part of the creative process. It's part of it's just.
I think too, like the conflict within a character is interesting to us. It draws, I think, the guy watching, because of all people, Robert Duvall said that. You know, he was like in To Kill a Mockingbird. He played Boo Radley. He hardly says anything, if he does say anything. But I remember this one scene where he's behind the door in the girl's room, and he hardly does anything. But I was just like, I was just completely drawn to him. You're just like mesmerized. Look, what is he doing? How is he even acting? But and he said he likes to find in any character. He likes to find like this conflict, this tension in whatever character. And that's kind of the area he stays in. And I guess it draws people to it or something. I don't know. That's what I wanted to ask you. Like, I don't know, I know you don't have a drama background, but to me, it's such a compelling question. Like, what makes a star compelling, charismatic? Why are they so powerful as opposed to another beautiful actress or actor or something?
Well, I mean, it's God-given talent. I mean, Betty, as Father McGuire used to say, you know, she was a genius. What price genius? I mean, she was. Her really good friend said she could see somebody, she barely knew them, she knew their whole life story. I mean, she just was genius. She just had this feel. So it's
intuition.
Intuition. It's God-given. I mean, she had it. It's just God, you know, gave her this talent, but also gave her this great burden of not having a father. She was forever looking for a father. Yeah. And that's a kind of a so my Oasis 2, which is coming out, the Alec Guinness didn't know who his father was. So that's not an uncommon theme. John Wayne's father was very weak, so John Ford was like his substitute father.
Oh, really?
For him. So but anyway, so that the burden that you carry, and then so God takes away something and he gives this great gift. Now for Betty, Betty really just expressed herself, just let it all be out there, even though she really never wrote a book. She did write, and I think it's terrible. I can't remember his name. Isn't that terrible? But the partner of the minister who took her in, really, they edited, and then his other partner edited the book. But so she wrote passages of it. You don't know, but she did. You don't know what is her and what's filled in. But she gave a lot of interviews, and she Osborne and Douglas, and she expressed herself as she told the AP reporter back when she was recovering. She said, all the stars in trouble. All the stars are in trouble. You just don't know. You have no idea what they do in their personal life. So it's just this weakness, something that that's part of the creative person, that they are very in touch with their emotions. Let's put it that way, for sure. Because on film, it's like a film helps you, pulls you out, you react emotionally. So these stars are just the vehicles to be able to really bring that out.
I've heard some people say too that a lot of them do come from troubled childhoods, and it's almost like they spent their time growing up imagining what it'd be like to be in another family, they were looking for some kind of escape, and imagine what other people's lives are like, or place themselves in other. So like they kind of develop it from their difficulties. And to me, one time I saw this list too of all these great actors that, like, so many of them went to Hollywood like as a teenager, and they were the lucky ones, that got the break or whatever. But I mean, they were all in. I mean, they were like running from something, or trying to find some kind of new hope. That I was really shocked. Like how many did not go study this and then get in it. They went and just tried their best. But.
Well, A.C. Lyles had an expression that in real estate, the saying is location, location, location.
Right.
He's in Hollywood, it's obsession, obsession, obsession. I mean, they're driven. Oh yeah. So.
What's another story you like from your book?
So Betty, let's see, and so check out the Alatea piece on Betty today, and check out my book. Please buy my book. So let's see. We'll start Alfred Hitchcock. They're all great. Now he was not a conversion. He was a revert. He got in the. I can't remember how he came in the book. I think I wanted to replace him. I replaced him with Lana Turner, but then the publisher, the Franciscan, they wanted Alfred. So I said, okay, fine. I quickly. It was because I was writing this book. For months, I had said, I'm going to pivot on July 15th. I'm going to edit it, polish perfection. My mother got sick the month before and died on July 15th. So we put in Alfred Hitchcock, and he came from a very stable family, very stable Catholic family, very devout, if a little irreverent. But he got the good Catholic training, discipline from Jesuit training, St. Ignatius, there north of London, and he was the most disciplined director. That was straight from his Catholic upbringing. His wife Alma was Episcopalian, so she converted, but they kind of drifted. But he came full circle at the end of his life. He came roaring back.
So he did quit going to church. So.
Well, it wasn't with his wife and his priorities in filmmaking. He probably didn't make it the priority he should have, but he made sure his grandchildren, got to church. So I interviewed Father Henninger, who went with the priest, Father Tom Sullivan, who was the priest on the Paradown case, and as Hitch was dying, and so he said that he was the one that told me he made sure the grandchildren went to school. Yeah, but he did sort of. They all kind of drifted because their main focus was making film. Yeah. Same with John Ford, but he's not in my books. But but beautiful how he came back, and then the next one is Bob Hope. Was a Catholic. He was beautiful.
On his deathbed, he was baptized, or
Bob Hope? No, Bob Hope. It was 93. And you think that's old, but I interviewed with Father Grishel, and he said he had all his wits about him. I know, 93. My dad was really in the saddle 93. No, he was prayed into the church, I think, by Dolores. His story is beautiful. I'm not going to give the whole thing away because then they won't buy my book. So then Gary Cooper is the next one. Gary Cooper, beautiful story. He was catnip to the ladies. I mean, he was just. I remember visiting A.C. Lyles' office, and he had all the photos with all the stars all around. He was in the Fred Astaire's old office, and A.C. had his saddle shoes on like Fred Astaire. And Gary Cooper was the most gorgeous, head and shoulders above all the rest. But he finally realized he was coming up empty, and his wife and daughter were Catholic, and he'd ask them. They go to church at the Our Lady of Good Shepherd, and he'd ask. They tell stories in Beverly Hills.
Beverly Hills, yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
As Rosalind Russell called it, Our Lady of the Cadillacs. And so gradually, it was a gradual Holy Spirit gradually drawing him in.
Oh.
And then had the Patricia Neal affair, and he went down to see Hemingway. Hemingway said, "Forget it." I guess Hemingway knew romancing a younger woman was not a good idea. So he then gradually started saying, "I'd like to talk to Father Ford, Harold Ford, Father Tough Stuff," and they went out on drives, and his wife thought they'd be talking about religion, but they were talking about hunting and all the guy things, and gradually came around to religion. And so he figured, just like Sergeant York, a little religion wouldn't do no hurt. Yeah. He said, "I'll never be quite like a saint," but it was a beautiful thing at the end. He really suffered. And
he had like lung cancer.
He had prostate and colon, and A. Hotchner was Hemingway's aide de camp, his PR, his aide, his very helpful with all his writing. And so visited Coop, and Coop said, "I want you to give a message to Hemingway." He said, "I won't be long. Remember that discussion we had about whether he should become a Catholic?" He said, "It's the best thing I ever did. Best thing I ever did." And he said, "I know what's happening to me is God's will." So, beautiful. St. Gary.
And Hemingway himself was Catholic?
Yes.
Oh.
That's my next book. For the next time I come to EWTN, I'll talk to you about that. So, and Maria Cooper Janis has written the foreword to the Hemingway book. So she's good best friends of Mother Dolores, who did the foreword to this book, Oasis, the first Oasis. So Cooper, and then
Patricia Neal did come, and she became Catholic.
Oh, at the very, 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 very end. She was a piece of work. She's beautiful. Then Mary Astor, and then John Wayne. Did we talk about Mary Astor? Okay, that's in my EWTN. I don't want to take. So Mary Astor, beautiful story, big in the her parents. She just came. She was coming up when film was coming in, and her parents he was a German immigrant, and they were always looking for he was always looking for the next deal, and nothing panned out. And then finally they discovered they had this cash cow, Mary Astor, the Lucille Vasconcelos. So she finally went out to Hollywood and was just a big success. Beautiful, beautiful tresses, and just a gorgeous girl. Got in with John Barrymore. God had an eye for her, and he was, he was very much a lover of women. So he mentored her, and her parents knew what was going on, and they had an affair, and it was destructive to her because it didn't last.
Was he Mr. Potter and It's a Wonderful Life, or is that somebody?
No, that was Lionel. Lionel, his brother.
Oh, okay.
So, but her story is very personal, and it's very long, and so by the book. But she became Catholic just before she made Maltese Falcon, and then she was an alcoholic, and but she finally, and then with the film, she was getting older and had some sickness, and then got some success with television, but but she'd drink. She'd come back from New York to LA and she'd drink, and she realized there was something wrong, and she said, "But a sick person can get well." And she went to see Father Peter Sicklick, who was the priest that helped Spencer Tracy, and he really helped her see that she was escaping because of her childhood. Her parents would have these arguments, and she'd escape. They'd to the under the bed, and she was escaping. She was always escaping. So she wrote this beautiful, beautiful autobiography. My Story, I think, Mary Astor, beautiful, 1959, and then so anyway, gorgeous story of conversion, healing, recovery. Ann Southern, beautiful. Just get the Ann Southern. Oh, now she was. It's funny. All the women I've written about didn't really do the casting couch. It's funny that I picked these women who were stronger. Mary Ann Southern, no, but she had some abusive. She had actually this new edition had an abusive marriage situation. She was good friends with Lucille Ball, a real dynamo woman, but had health issues and became a Catholic. And I can't remember his name, but he introduced her to the Catholic faith. And but she was Saint Anne. I just call her Saint Anne. So she was beautiful. Suffered a lot, but beautiful. The Catholic faith really gave her strength. Ann Southern, and then the next one, Barbara Stanwyck. Beautiful story. Barbara Stanwyck. Yes, you're right. She was a wild one. And Lana Turner. We'll get to her. Lana Turner, Betty Hutton, Ann Miller, and Patricia Neal. Lana Turner. So Lana Turner, her father died when she was young. But she on her own decided to become a Catholic because I think it was her parents were divorced. And so they went to San Francisco, and there was a Catholic family that she stayed with, and so she wanted to become Catholic. And but she had this this ESP. She had this ESP when her father was gonna, just before he died. She had this premonition. It was incredible. But but she she went right up the chain when they got out to L.A. And the famous sweater girl, the guy it was the guy who was the head of the Hollywood Reporter. He said, "Would you like to be acting? I don't know. I'll have to ask my mother." But
Spencer Tracy was Catholic, though.
Yes.
Okay.
And he's in Oasis too. So we can let's move on to Oasis too. But okay. Patricia Neal, beautiful story. Yeah. Ann Miller, beautiful story. I actually interviewed the priest who baptized her, just miraculously. How they were all planning the Havers. Because she had always wanted to become a Catholic, and then all of a sudden she broke her hip and she got sick and she had lung cancer, and he just had this event to go to. He was friends of the producer of Murder, She Wrote, O'Neill, I think Bob O'Neill, and had to go to the gym. No, you go to this event so he dropped in the hospital, and then it was just the way. And then he said, I better go, and he saw her and he baptized her, and that was that. She died. It was, and I interviewed him in June 2014. Yeah, it was a really beautiful. Father Porrick Loftus, out in Woodland, out in Ventura. So, and then Patricia Neal. So she had it's because of the social fabric. So she was born in 26, and she had a really nice childhood, and gravitated to acting because she was that was her calling. And then the son of, he was actually an abortionist, he robbed her of her virginity, and that was really a wound to her. And
that was her first husband or something?
Her when she was coming up, when she was dating. Oh, okay. And that was a wound to her. And so then she started kind of with reckless abandon, just wasn't really paying attention to marital status, but Gary Cooper, and then she famously had that affair. He helped her because then she married Roald Dahl, and then she became very successful, but then that was a difficult marriage. There was some, he wasn't successful, then he became successful, and then she had the stroke, and after that then had the that's a couple more children, but then the marriage fell apart because there was a interloper who stole, took his affections. You can't judge, but that's the way it went. And so she was just devastated. But she ran into Maria Cooper Janis in Paris and helped her get to the Abbey, Mother Dolores Hart, and they became best friends and just really helped turn her life around. And she wrote this beautiful autobiography with the help of Dick DeNewton, a very good friend of Mother Dolores, who died, several years ago.
So that's up in Pennsylvania? Is that where Mother
No,
Dolores?
it's in Connecticut.
Oh, Connecticut. Okay.
So she said, I want to be buried at the Abbey. Okay, fine. But you have to become Catholic. Oh, well, I'll think about that. And she became Catholic just before she died. Wow. So anyway, that's so beautiful, beautiful story.
Did she die in her 80s or 90s?
She died in 2010, August 8th, 2010.
Oh, wow.
If I'm not mistaken. I think it was August 8th, 2010. So she was...
Early 80s, I guess.
75, 74, 84.
84, yeah.
Almost, 84.
Yeah.
Lung cancer. So that's that group of... That's just a little smattering. Is that a good smattering?
Yeah. So Oasis 2 is like some...
The Barrymores.
Are they more modern, like Oasis?
No, it's another collection. Although it does get a little more modern. The Barrymores, Ethel mainly. The mother met this wonderful actress who Polish Catholic, brought them into the church and brought the kids in the church. So Ethel and Lionel and John secondarily, but there's a lot of Lionel and John there too. And Cagney. This July 17th is the 125th anniversary of his birth, so I pegged the publication of that. But actually, it's going to be July 17th.
And he's a convert, Cagney?
No. Oh. No. This is Oasis, the souls behind the billboard. So it's not just conversion stories. Oh. He actually ended up leaving the church. He was raised Catholic. His father died of influenza when it was New York City. It's in my book, but... Let me see if I can. It was the most people dying in a month, October of 1918 ever. It was like 15,000.
Like Spanish flu, maybe.
It was a Spanish flu.
Yeah.
So and the priest, but still, this wasn't right. The priest didn't get to give him the funeral services at the funeral. And Cagney was really, because he had paid him, he was really, really incensed, and he said that's it. And Cardinal O'Connor famously apologized to his widow at the funeral, at his funeral, at Cagney's funeral. So Cagney, Tracy, beautiful story.
Yeah.
Alec Guinness, convert, and Jack Lemmon. So that's
Jack Lemmon. Tell us about Jack Lemmon.
Jack Lemmon. Oh, Jack Lemmon. I love Jack Lemmon. He such an interesting story. It's funny because they're on all these stories. Philadelphia, the Barrymores, Cagney, New York City, Tracy, Milwaukee. It's so interesting. They're all Tracy, Milwaukee, James Stewart, Indiana. Is it Philadelphia, Indiana? So small town, Indiana. And then London, and then Boston. So he was from Boston. His parents were from Baltimore. His mother was Protestant, father Catholic, and so there was a split. So there was tension in that household. That really impacted young Jack. He was the only child. So that kind of is the genesis of his becoming an actor.
Yeah.
But he was very talented, very musical.
Yeah.
His father was musical.
He just had so much energy. You just felt energy when you saw him act.
He said if he hadn't become an actor, he'd probably be in prison because all that energy had to go. So it's the story of these stars. Yeah. But anyway, so that's I think this is kind of encapsulates the Oasis 2 will come out in the summer, July 16th. So, but right now Oasis 1 is available through Amazon. And also, scratch that, through the religious catalog, EWTN.
Okay.
And yeah, it's great. It's great.
And James Stewart?
I added James Stewart. A good priest friend of mine said he had a Catholic heart. I wanted to broaden it a little bit. He was best friends of Coop, Gary Cooper. and I say if he was so spiritual, so Christian, so had such a deep faith, but if he had Catholic faith, he would have avoided some of the pitfalls. Let's put it that way.
Right.
I think, in my humble opinion. But he was just an American hero. I call it James Stewart the Muse and the Mission, because he, at one point he was like, do I go to the, he actually, after the war, World War II, he was like, they wanted him to have a military career.
Yeah.
Because he was had quite a significant role.
Yeah, he led like a squadron, right, of bombers, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But you were telling me too earlier, like the history of Hollywood itself. Tell us about that the original community of Hollywood pre-existed film.
I know. This is the thing that I find so amazing, that Hollywood was founded, the initial vision was to be a Christian enclave.
Huh.
Harvey and Dieta Wilcox, they came out from Topeka, Kansas. Well, Dieta was his wife died of tuberculosis. They came out to Santa Barbara for the good weather, and then she died, and then he married Dieta, and then they were in Los Angeles, and their little 18-month-old baby died, and they were grieving, and they would go out to the Coonga, probably don't pronounce that right, Coonga Valley, Hollywood. Well, what would become Hollywood? Fell in love, bought up the territory, and famously, right where it had their place, right at Hollywood, where it would become Hollywood and Vine, and Hollywood was incorporated. He had the map, 1887, Christian enclave, but then the filmmakers came, and the money, and the film, and it was like the second gold rush, and the morals, by 1914 with the first feature film, that's when Dieta died. That was when things were starting to go a little bit south. So,
right. And then a lot of Jewish people went into the industry, right, from New York, like studio heads.
They were it's such an amazing story. You should get the film Moguls and Movie Stars, that first episode. It is a stunning story. These they all came within 500 miles of Warsaw. The Warners, Adolf Zucker. And the story of how they came, it's just incredible. William Fox. Who's the other?
So most of them were Polish?
Polish, Russian, German. Yeah. Well, he was, Louis B. Mayer was Russian. I think his father, did he come from Russia? I think maybe his parents, he was Canada. And anyway, they all bought up. Once the film came in, they were just very savvy, very hardworking. Mm-hmm. They bought up all these theater. Marcus Lowe, that's the big one. Marcus Lowe bought up these Nickelodeons, and Marcus Lowe they could just see. The Balaban, the mother, she said she could see it on her son or grandson said a very, very basic level. It's like The Prince. It's like it doesn't go bad. It doesn't spoil like food. You just go and you get a new print. Mm-hmm. And so they were very savvy businessmen, very hardworking. Yeah. William Fuchs, 6 years old, Lower Manhattan. He was a little kid. He fell off a dairy truck, broke his right arm. They didn't have the money to have it set. So all his life he had this withered arm. William Fox Studios, withered arm. These are people who just had a great drive, obsession, hardworking.
Yeah.
Hardworking. And Carl Laemmle, don't want to leave him out, Universal.
Okay. Well, Mary, thank you so much for talking with us. We're going to get you on a plane here.
I know. I got to pack.
So we'll look for Oasis too. And right now, Oasis is being sold by Religious Catalog.
It's in the religious list.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you.